Straight from the edge, it's time for some daytime drama. Over on Y&R, we started off the week with the amazing tribute to Kristoff St. Seeing all the clips brought back a ton of memories, and showed off the acting chops that he was graced with. So his fellow cast members, each one, they took the whole day to have time for each one of them, and you should definitely go check out the clips. There's no way, with the amount of history that all of these people had together, that anyone can do it justice except for them, and I'd encourage you to check them out. There's just the stories I wouldn't want to take away from how they described the fun that Kristoff had, and the showcasing of their talent at his own expense at sometimes, and just showing what a real family they have over there. And I don't think I've quite ever seen anything as well put together as what they all accomplished, to try to let everyone else, out here know as much about Kristoff as we possibly can through them. And I think they really accomplished something that not really that you could replicate. So, big shout out to you guys, especially with what you're going through. And it was a celebration, and that was really nice, coming off of the funeral last week, and showing just the humor that Kristoff had. They all seemed to get that across really well, and so definitely check that out. So moving forward in the week, everyone is dealing with the loss of Neil, and expressing it in different ways. Lily is continuing to beat herself up with now the loss of her father and Hillary, and so the way that she was doing this even prior to Neil going was that she was not letting herself have happiness with Kane, and that's despite their marriage issues. So Kane is coming off of this trying to respect her wishes, because he knows what they mean to each other, but he's trying to give her the space she needs to come to some terms with what's happened, and realize that at some point she's punished herself enough. And at the same time, Kane is realizing that he needs to explore who he is without her, and do that for himself, not just to win her back. And Tracy's been helping a little bit with that, and you also have the solitude part, the loneliness that he's going through. And I think that the writers going forward with Daniel, they're really trying to open him up and show off his talents, because he's kind of been underutilized. And I think the story they're going to go forward with is going to show what it means to be, these lovers with Lily, that overcoming things that most couples would not be able to survive. And I think that's the direction it should go, and then make them stronger characters in general, just because they've gone through all of these heartaches, and there's a big opportunity here that I hope is not missed. So Kyle and Summer are probably going to annul the marriage, and Summer was like obviously dealing with the fact that she thought that Kyle would at least try to give it a go and see the real love that they have with each other, and she knows that what they have is special, and he's not quite seen all of it because he's obviously in love with Lola, and she's not sure quite what to do. She basically is given an exit opportunity at Jabot so she doesn't have to see Kyle every day, and Jack, essentially offers her that, and she doesn't necessarily want to go back to working at Newman, but she does end up going and talking to her mom, Phyllis, and trying to get a read on what Phyllis would say. It's her mom, and they share a lot of commonalities with each other, and how would she deal with that if she was in a position with Kyle. And she was saying basically like, you can't hold out for this. You can't be second best or second choice or whatever. And that obviously Phyllis would respond with that kind of approach. And she did give some really good advice to her on basically that you are the best choice for that job at Jabot, and nobody else would have come up with this idea in the exact way. And what we're talking about is her working with social media and influencers, and trying to have these packaged sort of unboxings where you're not spending so much on advertising, and you're getting to your target core audience. And her and Kyle were working in tandem to get that point across to Jack and Billy. And so she said, don't, just because a man did this to you, you go forward and do the job that you are most capable of doing, and don't let him dissuade you at that, just because you might have to see him at the office. And I thought that was just a great motherly advice moment from Phyllis. And so Summer took that to heart and went to Jack and basically said, I'm the best person for this job, and he knows it. And that he said, she said to think about it, not to rush into it, but that she thought that was the best choice, even though she'd have to see Kyle, which is his son, on a regular basis. And so he did, because she went there in the way she did, he's sitting there as a CEO thinking about it, from a business standpoint, and trying to separate the family issues. And that was a real good moment there, Peter. So of course Summer heads over to her dad, and so Nick, at first he wants to just really say, like, he wants to rip up Kyle. He knew this was going to happen, but then he backed off because he realized that his daughter needed that fatherly comfort, and not to just go beat up the guy. And he switched gears really quickly, and they had a nice sweet moment where they were sitting watching some old like a Disney type movie or something, and just being there for her. And I thought that was a really nice moment for both of them. So you also have so now that Kyle has apparently moved on from Summer, he's gung-ho, like, I'm gonna take Lola out and have a proper nice date. He works on the roof at Society to get it ready to make it look like a tropical destination. And so of course Lola is thinking about the date and you know, what it would be. She's a virgin, and so she's worried. She's going through her mind like an enactment of what it might be like, and seeing herself kind of maybe screw up, and she's worried about screwing up. And I thought that was a kind of a cool moment of her thinking, projecting forward what the things she might do, and she's overthinking it. And then of course she has the scar, and she's overthinking that he's gonna be, you know, like taken aback by that and not want to be with her, even though Summer would have the same scar. So she's not thinking about that too. But of course he calls, and it reassures her, or texts her like that he's all excited, and so she puts it out of her mind. And Abby also is getting her kind of excited about the future and everything for the two of them. And he comes, and basically they go up and have a nice time on the roof. And one of the things they're not doing, kind of story-wise, that weirds me out a little bit, is both Lola and Summer seem to be drinking alcohol, and it seems like from a writing perspective they're leaving out the fact that they just had surgery and half their liver's gone. So you wouldn't really want to overload with too much alcohol, because the liver does grow really fast, but they're not addressing it, which I don't know if they're leaving that open for a plot possibility, like one of them maybe injures their liver or their half. But it does seem kind of odd, because they're drinking. They're not drinking heavily, but they're not making a point to say, oh, maybe I should just sip it or something. Just kind of an odd thing that you maybe noticed. But so Kyle and Lola do end up going to the athletic club to get a room, and everything goes off in a, you know, romantic way. So her fears kind of went away, and it went exactly the way she would have wanted it to go. So yeah, it's a hard thing, this whole love triangle, and we'll see how it goes forward. But so Victoria reveals to her mom, Nikki, that basically Billy proposed to her, and Nikki like looks at her and she's like, well, I don't see a ring there. And she says, you know, basically it's so sudden, and that she's not really sure how to like deal with the trust stuff, and everything does seem to be going the right way. And so Nikki, you know, they're coming off the heels of the passing of Neil, and that, you know, you're living in the prime of your life, she's telling her daughter, and you and Billy are in a good place right now, and you should not really hold back from living life. And I think this is just such great motherly advice for her to give, because the future is unknown, and that don't keep thinking that the future is, you know, that if you're not living now, so the future, when that comes, you know, let's say it's 10 years down the road and you've missed that whole possible time that you could have been with Billy, and they have kids together, and that constantly living for the future part is a perfect future, I guess, is not really the way to approach it. And Nikki was saying this from her own experience with Victor, that there's been times where she should have moved forward with the relationship, even though it was rocky, because they would have had more, you know, life together, and that that prime is something that you should go after. So that was just great advice to give from a mother to a daughter, and it's good. So Devon is working with Jett and Elena to get Jett in a comfortable position where he feels like he can do maybe a small little local tour. I'm not sure what they're going to do, but Devon and Elena were both saying, basically that they didn't want to push his vocal cords, and Jett obviously didn't want to. But he was talking about maybe he had a few ideas on some new songs to make a new record, and or just do a greatest hits tour. And I thought that was really good, looking at the business side of how the music industry works. And so then, of course, Jett kind of sets up that, he's a little tired, to meet up for dinner to discuss stuff. He's older or whatever. So he says that Elena should definitely go with Devon to dinner as his representative. And, just, of course, Devon accepts wanting to spend time with Elena. And, yeah, that was pretty cool. So later they did end up going to society, and they got kind of stuck in an area for couples, and they're having a good time and laughing and whatnot. And Devon is he's kind of struck by her laugh because it kind of reminded him of Hillary, and they're dealing with the loss of Neil. And then Elena reveals to him also that her mother had recently passed, and Devon had come about that by asking, what about your mom? I don't know about her. And so she had to tell him that she was gone, and then he was asking, kind of what happened, and she didn't want to talk about it, and he completely understood, of course, considering his 2 losses this year. And he basically was kind of going into that territory where everyone is trying to comfort people who have lost somebody, and they don't know the right way to, do that, obviously. And so the people who've lost somebody close to them are trying to not hurt the feelings of the person that's trying to comfort them, but at the same time they've heard it from so many different people that they just kind of had enough of that part of the process, I guess. And so together, the 2 of them are going through losses, so they have something to identify in each other, where they can kind of leave that and not talk about it constantly, I guess. And it's giving them some refuge. So that was kind of a good little direction the writers went with setting this up. So Nikki, she ended up hiring Ray to track down Victor, or where he went after the funeral. And so he went to Vegas, and so she wants Ray to really try to figure out what he's up to, since he gave them nothing. And so Ray's getting ready to leave, and he's talking to Sharon about it, and they finally started to really connect. And so she's saying, basically that I'm sure you're wanting to stay busy and everything. And so she essentially says, well, I'm heading to Vegas too. And he said, oh, that's interesting. And maybe we'll be in the same hotel. And then she said, maybe we be in the same hotel room. I might have it backwards there, but so she's all excited because they're doing their little private investigation. And she's like, I can be your Watson to your Holmes. And so they're getting a little kinky with that, I guess. But it was kind of fun to watch. And so they end up heading to Vegas, and they're slowly figuring out what Victor's been up to following. And Victor had paid off the psychiatrist so that he wouldn't say anything about his connection to Victor or whatnot. And therapist said that he basically, it's patient-client confidentiality anyway, but it seems like Victor gave him like $10,000, $20,000, something like that. And so, of course, Ray and Sharon head over there and trying to get information, and he's not giving them anything, and Ray sees the briefcase and knocks it over, and oh, what's this? And the guy tries to put it all together, and Ray was just trying to rattle him so that he said, well, when you're ready to talk, about what's going on, we're here. So he didn't press him, but they ended up figuring out another contact, a woman that seems to be connected to Adam. And of course, Victor is at the bar talking to her, trying to figure out what happened, because Adam, it seems like if this is the direction they're going, that Adam has lost his memory somewhat, where he doesn't know who he is, but he's confided in this woman, or trusts her, I guess. And so she was saying that, to Victor, don't try to push too hard, because he won't even trust me. And so I think that's going to be the big reveal, because after that, or during that conversation Victor and this woman had, Ray and Phyllis, or Ray and Sharon had called her number, and so he said, oh, ignore that. And she said, well, who are they? And like, oh, I know who they are, I'll deal with it. And so he went over to their hotel room, because he's been tailing them since they've been in town. And he asked Ray to go out. Victor asked Ray to go outside, and Ray does reluctantly. And he says he needs to talk to Sharon. So basically, he's going to probably do the reveal here on Monday that Adam is alive, and he's going to need her help to, obviously, her and Adam were lovers, and that it might jog his memory to see her. So that's probably where the writers are going to go. But it was very nice to see Eric in his element, just the subtleties. Victor's Victor. It's just awesome to watch. So it's going to be fun going forward. So the Young and the Restless, they won Daytime Emmy for the show, and that was nice to see. Shemar Moore was actually the one that handed out the award for the show. When he went up for the open the envelope, he did a tribute to Kristoff, which is nice to see, and kind of show to a bigger audience that might not have gotten to see their tribute show on Monday. And you also had Daniel Goddard come out and talk a little bit about, or he also did slight tribute to Kristoff as well, just a nice shout out. And he also mentioned, that there's 10 million daytime viewers out there, and they pointed to him in the audience. Nice to see, but just a great moment where all of this is kind of all connecting at the same time, and in real time, I guess you would say, where at this point everything's it's not even on live television anymore. You have to go out and seek it online. But it kind of brings that nice element where you can see people responding, in chat and everything. But yeah, it's just nice to see Shemar, what he had to say, and Daniel, nice, all that, good to see. So moving over on GH, Ava and Kevin and Laura and Mac and Felicia and Lulu were burying Ryan's hand, and of course they're setting up this plot to entrap Ryan, and so they're filming it, and you have a lot of nice acting going on all their parts to try to sell the fact that Ava is with Kevin now, and to get Ryan jealous. And you had a few things happen. It seems like Ava, like, kicked the ground or something like that. It seems like somebody spit on the grave for the hand. And everyone really sold it. And you had Franco pull up, or walk up, and he's watching this whole thing unfold and seeing, it seems kind of odd because he's not in on what they're doing, and he doesn't really ask too many questions about it. But obviously with the death of Kiki, everyone's very angry, and they're not having to act that aspect of it. And it seems like Franco says something about him, hoping he's dead and everything like that, that Ryan's dead because of what he'd done to Kiki. So, but yeah, it was fun to watch, and they had a little bit more down at the Metro Court where they were trying to sell it up a little bit more with Ava and Kevin, and Franco also witnessed that too and was kind of weirded out by this. He's not putting together that it's fake yet, I don't think. And Lucy also didn't know, and so it really sold well. She thinks that Kevin's moved on with Ava, and she's just like, what the hell is going on? This makes no sense. But Lulu's capturing all of it and uploading it live. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun with that. So Milo infiltrated Donna Day for Sunny to be a little bit of a backup in case Sam runs into trouble. So things are really getting heated there. Shiloh is, gonna be backed into a corner at some point, and they're gonna need to have Milo there. So Milo did this great job selling this whole idea that, he's down and out on his luck with his girlfriend, split up, and he doesn't have a job, and made it seem like a wandering lost soul that found the book, Every Day is a New Day or whatever, and he really, Shiloh, he really understood everything that he was telling about making a new life or whatnot, and so he wanted to sign up for classes. But it was just fun because Milo doesn't get to do this undercover work all the time, and I thought that was a lot of fun. And he ended up helping Sam out later, so of course they interact and act like they don't know each other. And Shiloh's watching, and so Sam does end up going upstairs to the office to kind of comb through the records, try to find the blackmail that Shiloh has on everybody to get Christina's. And she stumbles upon her own file and sees the picture that Shiloh had from a camera when she was blindfolded, and she was kind of taken aback by it, didn't complete her mission, and Milo texts her saying that he'd failed at holding Shiloh's attention, and that Shiloh was looking for her. So she did get out of the room kind of at the last second. It seems like Shiloh did see her leave the room and was like, she was like, I was looking for a photocopy machine, and he said, we don't have one. And he kind of does somewhat suspect that she maybe was in the room, but maybe didn't see the files, so he's not too worried yet. But going forward, Sam was saying to Jason that they need to try to figure out how to get her in the trust. And so Jason is basically telling her that he recommends her to use him as the blackmail. So basically they want to make a fake crime that Jason committed and then have Sam tell it, but then have Spinelli create fake online information or within the police department so that Shiloh thinks that it's a real crime that happened and won't suspect that it's fake. So they are kind of worried that D.A. Dawson might somehow cause a problem if Shiloh does call their bluff, but Jason's not thinking that that's going to happen based off Shiloh's approach with Sam. So that's just down the road, and they might have to deal with that, especially if they don't know about Dawson's intentions. So interesting how they're setting this all up going forward. But he's also saying, like, they're going to drug you and then tattoo you, and then he's going to have his way with you. You're obviously not going to that extent. And she's saying, no, we'll stop this before that. And he said, how are we going to? And she's, well, you're the ultimate backup. And so he will be, of course. Going forward with the plot, that's how this will probably go at the last second. So, yeah, it's going to be a bumpy road coming up. And Jason does know from Brick that the cup was laced with a drug that caused Christina to be knocked out. And so they're going to have to end up telling her, Christina, about that when they do try to help her get out of the cult. So you also have Chase and Valerie trying to figure out what happened to Christina, and they go to DA Dawson, and they're trying to get basically to move forward, and Commissioner Ashford too. So they want to be able to investigate where she is, because they're getting conflicting things, that she's all right, but then they don't know where she's at. And she did call Valerie, who's her friend, and say she needed help. So they basically are told by Dawson that they're not allowed to use resources to go after that. And so, of course, Chase and Valerie are like, they leave, and then they're like, well, we're doing it anyway. And that was a pretty cool moment to see. So they end up going to talk to Alexis and say, they found out through one of their friends at the department that the phone call had come from Alexis' phone. And so, of course, Alexis and Sonny were talking, and they came to the door. She did end up letting them in to try to get them to leave. And she obviously is a lawyer, so she's not trying to reveal too much information, but said that their phones had got basically mixed up. And so they are on to Alexis, though. They realize that she's lying, and so they start to tail her. And Chase heads off to basically talk to Michael and tell him that, when this comes out, you need to get ahead of this. That he basically told Michael that he knows that Christina is most likely kidnapped by the family, and they're kind of trying to help from a different way. So he's from the law end, but Michael and him will end up probably being on the same page because they're Willow connection. And you had Valerie trying to tail Alexis, and it was really fun. They came up with a plan, because basically Neil and Sonny both were saying the opposite thing, but Neil said they both were correct. So Sonny said, there's no way you can go to the intervention, and then Neil said, there's no way you can't not go, but you can't get caught either. So the way they devised this plan was that it seems like Sonny was in the house, Alexis was there, and then you had Diane come, and Valerie's watching this from outside. And when Diane went in, Alexis and her switched outfits and then put wigs on. And when they left, they were kind of far enough away, Valerie couldn't tell that they weren't who they were. And so Alexis took Diane's car, went to the intervention, and then Diane, took Alexis's car, and then took Valerie all around town. And finally, the last stop was at Kelly's. Valerie went in, and Diane came out of the bathroom and dropped the wig and said it was fun, playing with her all day. And that she knew that it was an unsanctioned tail or investigation, and that basically if they pursued it, she was going to go after him legally. So nice move on her part, and that was fun to watch. And then so you had Shiloh causing some more problems for Willow at the school, and when he left, he bumped into Julian, and Julian doesn't know too much about all the shenanigans from Donna Day, and so he comes in after, and Willow is like basically almost hugging Julian to some extent, saying like, I trust you over Shiloh and with Wiley, and you know, basically you need to look out for him because she can't. He kind of got somewhat clued in to what Shiloh's about. It seems like Willow's going to tell him some more, but Julian didn't really know that aspect, and so it's going to be nice to have him in the fold when all this goes down with Shiloh, because he can aid even maybe Jason and Sam a little bit if he can figure out more details on this. And then of course he'll be worried about Alexis with Christina and whatnot. So that was good scene to watch. And then also Michael did end up getting to Willow and telling her, you know, basically, you got to help. Well, he didn't say you got to, but he said all the stuff going on with Christina, and she offered to, you know, go to this intervention, and they end up at the end of the episode heading there. And basically Willow said, I can talk for myself. You don't need to tell Christina. I can deal with this more one-on-one. And even though it is an intervention with the group, I think that getting too cluttered with too many voices, she was basically saying like she can get cut through more of it, and hopefully that works out without too much of Christina saying basically she doesn't know what she's talking about, or she's making it up or whatnot. So we'll see. But you also had Christina had seen Alexis kind of crying about the fact she didn't recognize her daughter, and Christina did say she kind of empathized with her parents and realized what they might see, but she could also be playing them to try to placate them so that she can get let go. We'll see how that all goes. But so you also had Franco and Drew meeting on the terrace at or I guess porch at the Quartermain estate. So Franco's trying to, he gives a painting that is, I don't know if it was a sunset or a sunrise, that basically Oscar had seen it and liked it, and so Franco was offering it as a gift to him, and Drew was thankful, but he also kind of added that he's struggling with all of this. People are trying to help Drew see the situation, that they're fortunate to have gotten to know Oscar and him, that have a relationship, but he's also seeing the fact his son is going to leave permanently, and that there's no consolation, there's nothing anyone can say. And Franco really was able to be there for him in a brotherly, friendly way, and that was a nice scene for the two of them. And then moving forward, we got to see Oscar. So he was on death's door, and they had this entire scene move forward. So he suddenly got the color back in his face, and he woke up, and they went through this entire, he was cured, and went to the GH, and said that it was in total remission, and they couldn't believe it. And we were like, wow, this is a miracle. Now, seeing it photographically, you're watching it, seeing, there was a certain glow to the scenes, and things somewhat seemed off, but it wasn't, the plot was where it was in the rest of the story, so it didn't seem like it wasn't real, but it could have been sunset, and so you were thinking that they just changed the lighting maybe for the time. And they end up going and celebrating down at Charlie's, and everyone's excited. And so Oscar starts to see things that maybe this future isn't the real future. And he's seen, his, I guess it'd be his great-grandparents. And it's dawning on him that maybe he has passed away or is going to pass away. And he's kind of saying his goodbyes in this dream to Josslyn. And it's got this really surreal, weird feeling to it. But so they end up flipping it back. He got to have the celebration, and then saying he has to go, and it flips back to he is in the bed still. He hasn't left. He isn't cured, and he leaves his body, and he kisses Josslyn on the cheek and says he loves her, and he leaves out the door and heads with his grandparents to heaven, or great-grandparents to heaven. And so she wakes up from the kiss. She had fallen asleep for just a moment and dropped the book, and then he was gone and cold, and she had felt the kiss, and she went over and realized he was gone, and the Drew and Kim came in the room. They were just right outside the door. They had stepped out for a moment to give him a little time to rest, and so she backed up with Drew, and Kim went obviously over to her son, and really sad stuff. But they obviously handled this pretty as realistically, I guess you could. And everyone's just totally devastated because Oscar has passed away, and the way to look at it, it seems somewhat like a missed opportunity with the whole miracle thing from a writing perspective. So basically, how do you deal with a miracle versus harsh reality of people passing away from cancer or whatnot? And how would the cast have dealt with that had Oscar actually lived versus him passing away? And great performance on the death part, but where could you have taken this for each of the characters, and dealing with, well, why were we graced with a miracle versus in most cases not, or whatnot? Although a lot of childhood cancers are curable, but it seems like an interesting plot that they could have gone forward with, taking nothing away from the direction they did go, but the bait and tease, that's a bit much for somebody that's not accustomed to the way the technical aspect of us. I guess they kind of did reveal that he was gone, but for somebody who maybe hasn't seen scenes like that before, that's got to be extremely devastating to watch. So, but very well done from everyone's perspective. Garen, William, and Eden, just amazing performances from young actors. Going forward for your guys' future. Just, I think you did a great job here. And Eden, you know, just amazing stuff, showing emotion that, you know, to pull in, you know, into a performance, just very, felt very real. So, you know, kudos to all of you guys on all that hard work, along with the rest of the cast. And you obviously had Elizabeth and Franco telling Cameron, and him trying to be, you know, like, oh, I expected it, and then him walking into the staircase hallway and just dropping to the floor, realizing that it was real. And, you know, he obviously had all of this experience with Oscar in the last year or so, and been at odds with him, and then been his friend, and then they both love the same girl, and then going forward too, now Oscar's gone, how he's obviously loves Josslyn, and then but he's gonna want to respect what they were, and then it's gonna be challenging for the character, but it's gonna leave a lot for both Eden and William to work with going forward in plot. So they're setting themselves up really well with that, but just, yeah, showing good emotion there. And then also Josslyn texts Cameron right at that same time he was on the staircase, and he was trying to respond and couldn't. She could see that he was responding, but then he got rid of his message. So, yeah, good stuff, just how people might play out this in different ways, connecting with each other over the loss, and her mother came, and, you know, just no words to express how she felt, and, yeah, it's just hard to watch a young person go in a plot, and then Kim, you know, she decided that she couldn't stay at the Quartermains, even though Drew was offering her to be able to stay, and you're part of the family, and it didn't feel right to him to let her go, be alone, and but she said she had to face it, and she's, you know, kind of in some denial, I think, about how it's gonna just hit her like a ton of bricks. But he let her go reluctantly, and she ended up going outside the door and seeing all the flowers and stuffed animals and notes and cards, and realizing that her son had connected to so many people she didn't even know, and she's reading through them, and she can't even get in through the door to get there, and then she doesn't know she can do it, and then a hand touches her on the back, and it's, of course, Julian. And she had told him before that she, you know, needed to do it on her own, but through this and them reading the cards together, they're about ready to breach the door and go in, and together. And so that was nice that Julian, the timing of that, he got there right as she was going to do that, and so he could be supportive, because she's gonna need it, considering she was a single mother that had one kid, and the dynamics of that relationship, the way they set it up, where they kind of were the two of them against the world, kind of a unique thing that they had in those characters. And it's like half of her is gone, and without Oscar, I don't who she even is, and then holding on to the memory of him and the future he could have had, just a lot of emotional stuff to work with, but yeah, so so you also have Drew him not knowing what to do, and Shiloh comes in after hearing from Sam. So Shiloh had seen Sam, and he was not aware, obviously, of Oscar's death, and he was trying to get a hold of Sam. Well, of course, she said that this had happened, and Shiloh starts to go into this, well, death is, just, it's not really the end, and it's about you, and basically, he's looking at it from a perspective of personal growth or what, from his cult and the spinning of the spirituality into his own ends, I guess. And so when he realizes that Oscar's passed, he leaves Sam, obviously gives her a recorder to do her blackmail for the trust so that she can be in the trust. But he heads straight over to talk to his once friend, Drew, when he obviously had different memory. But he also goes to him and then starts to exploit the fact that Oscar passed away. And he does it in a way that Drew catches on to really quickly. Basically like, you cannot come at me from this angle of this is only the one step of life and whatnot. And Shiloh does kind of start to back off, realizing that Drew might just deck him right there for that. Because Drew's trying to deal with the actual loss of Oscar in this life. And he can't even be in a place of thinking about that. Because he's only known this kid, his son, for a year, and he feels somewhat robbed of that life that they could have had, and not being able to do anything for his son to have a future here on this plane of existence. And Billy, amazing what you've been able to do with this character. And then so you put Shiloh back into a corner, and Shiloh did end up giving a book that he claims was Oscar's, and it had a picture of Oscar with, it seems like, Drew and Kim, but saying he had some passage he liked in there. Shiloh just comes off all wrong all the time to everybody, just because he's got his own agenda, and he's using, truths about things and then twisting them to suit his agenda. He starts talking about memory with Drew, and obviously with Drew, he doesn't want anything to do with the memory recovery because he doesn't want to lose that year he's had with his family. And so it's all hitting at the wrong time, but following up with the memory thing a little bit more. So Maurice Benard won for Best Daytime Lead, and the main topic was memory, because it won on the Alzheimer that he had with Max earlier in the year, and losing your father to memory, and having them be there but not be there. And you're also having that over on Young The Restless with Dina. So this whole memory thing is coming up all over the place. And with Drew and the twins, having crossed memories. And even when Maurice went up there, so he won the award, and he's up against great competition with Peter and John and the other two guys. And he was like, I didn't even really expect to be the winner in all this competition. You guys are all amazing in your own roles. But he said that with his part, he went on to talk about his own father and memory and stuff like that. And so I think through that, this seems to be just a prevalent thing that everyone's identifying with, just societally, and it's just fitting that is what won for the award, because the other performances were amazing too in their respective shows. So yeah, it's interesting just how this is all playing out. But yeah, Drew is wanting to hold on to his memories and not want to lose that. So yeah, going forward, there's so much opportunity, because that it's not going to go away, considering you have the 3 sets of twins and the memory stuff. And from a writing perspective, it seems like getting Drew to remember things, maybe they'll have some kind of head trauma thing again or something like that, where it'll recall on its own, and you're not going to need I think it's Maddox, so the doctor, but they may go that route. I'm not sure, but I don't think Drew's going to do it by choice. It's going to be something that just either happens. It would be nice to have his memories and Jason's overlaid together so that he is kind of this hybrid of the two in knowledge, plus his current, so 3 of him, and how he deals with that. But that giving Billy that kind of latitude on, it just opens up that character in ways I think we haven't even seen yet. So it's going to be exciting to see. So over on Bold, Flo ended up being all right. She, of course, was knocked out by Zoe and was on the floor. And Shauna came in and had the taser up. And then Flo gets up and backs them both off. And she's all right. And she doesn't seem to have lost her memory. And later you do end up see that Katrina is in the intro credits. And so if we'd waited one more day, we would have seen she'd be all right. But Zoe and Shauna keep working on her, trying to convince her that all of their lives will be disrupted by her telling Hope the truth about Beth. And so they basically try to say, you can't do this, you're going to cause more harm than good. And Flo has that moral compass, so she's like, but Hope is losing out all of this, and she just can't do it. And they keep pushing her and pushing her and pushing her, and she gets a phone call from Hope saying that that there's a job offer at Forrester and she wants her to come. And it seems like before this happened, though, there was a pact that Zoe and Shauna tried to basically force on Flo. It won't stick, though. I mean, maybe temporarily they'll get her to not tell Hope, but we'll see. So Flo and Shauna end up going over and hearing about the proposal. It seems like it was Ridge and Hope and Brooke. So they give her the proposal, and Shauna's just, this is so exciting and whatnot, and Flo's not saying much, and she's obviously still dealing with the Hope thing and knowing this knowledge and how can I be here every day. And she ends up accepting the job offer and realizing that in the back of her mind probably that I can figure out a way to get this across her at some point. Yeah. So you also have Sally and Wyatt. There's a little trouble going on with them. Quinn had caused some problems. She'd gotten it in Sally's head that Wyatt was a little bit upset about Sally not accepting the offer to work at Spencer Tower and build the Spectre brand over there. And, he obviously told this to his mother in some confidence, which with Quinn, he probably should have realized that this might cause trouble on the back end
to do that and just be straight up with Sally if that's the case. But he probably was just venting to his mother and it gave her ammo essentially, and that wasn't smart. So, but on the other end, Sally is talking with Thomas, and Thomas has kind of sworn her to some secrecy because he wants to break up Hope and Liam. And so when Thomas and Sally are talking, Wyatt comes in and they act all interrupted, and Thomas tries to cover, saying, oh yeah, this is all work related. And so Wyatt, can read the body language. He knows that something's wrong and that they're hiding something, but he thinks that it's about a relationship between them, maybe, because they had one. And so they're both, Sally's kind of upset because Wyatt says, well, I want to take you and Flo out and try to connect and whatnot. And Sally's kind of like, it's your ex-girlfriend and all this. And then Quinn is trying to hook you. So he's not realizing properly that he shouldn't be engaging with another woman when he professes his love to Sally. But Sally's not trying to call him on it because she's not trying to act like she's jealous and insecure. And just great job on both their parts for the direction they've chosen to go with the show. But this couple is one of the better couples. Do not break them up. And especially over something so silly as far as misunderstandings. And the excitement they bring to the show, I just think it's a missed opportunity if they try to actually break them up. So you have Thomas making these fake picture for Hope, and then actually going to Douglas, his son, and saying to draw a picture for Hope and say how much he loves her, and just totally despicable thing Thomas is doing in going after a married woman. And even though he's trying to help out his son with it, it just comes across all wrong. And it's his motivations, like Sally said, is it about Douglas or is it more about him winning back Hope? And Thomas just going about this all the wrong way. And he, of course, gets some video of Liam with Steffi and the girls, and shows it to Hope, shows the crayon drawing that Douglas did to Hope, and then he keeps moving closer and closer to her, basically saying that it's better off Liam with Steffi, and that he's the man that is for her. And then he actually goes in and kisses her, and she backs off, and she's trying to process. She didn't see this coming from this angle. And so just Thomas, wrong way to go. Wrong way. Don't covet somebody else's wife. And just hopefully Hope is able to jog back and put him back in his corner. She's just recently reconnected with Liam physically and intimately, on a emotional level. And so it's just interesting way they're going about this plot wise. For the show, they are doing a great job with Kiara, Anika, Courtney, and Katrina, just giving you girls absolutely flattering outfits. And I think going forward, it's just a great thing to see compared to the other shows. You're really trying to garner that younger 20, late teen, 20-somethings audience, that going forward these shows need to have more diverse, not just so top heavy. Obviously the veteran actors, you have to have their plot lines shine, but you can't forget about drawing in that younger audience and giving them something that is identifiable and And just having fun with these outfits. I mean, they're giving Katrina just tons of awesome ones, and they even kind of were talking about that a little bit at Forrester. Shauna started to wear an outfit that she saw one of the models wear, and so with Sally and Flo, you're getting some cutting edge cool stuff that you're trying to put out there, and just flattering and beautiful women, just nice to see. And then of course Jacqueline won for Best Lead Actress. Nice job there. A stiff competition. The other people that you were nominated with had amazing performances as well. So good job on all that. And so it was kind of fun to see, since everything's streaming now instead of live on TV. You got to see posts or chat, and everyone has their favorite shows, and so you get your bickering going on, and everyone's got amazing performances, and there's just 4 left. You got to remember that. So try to keep it that fun. I'm talking as far as the fans out there, that the healthy, like poking fun at each other, obviously, but you got to realize that there's so few shows left that most of these actors are going crisscrossing between the shows anyway, and so you really want all the shows to win out. You don't really want to get in too much of like, you're going to have obviously one show do better in one area and another and whatnot, but between all of them, just there's so many amazing performances, it's hard to choose one. But Jacqueline, just nice job this year, and yeah. So that's about it. Yeah, keep researching.